A zombie apocalypse just hit Australia. Sydney is swarmed, Melbourne is falling, and panic is spreading across the country. From the burning cities to the endless outback, I'm ranking every state and territory to find out who actually survives and who is doomed. Stick around to the end, because the safest place to be when the outbreak kicks off might be the last one you'd ever expect. Quick disclaimer before we dive in. These rankings judge each state and territory as a whole, not your personal bush block or that one hidden fishing camp you swear nobody knows. A few great hideouts don't cancel out what happens when major cities collapse, supply lines fall apart, and refugees and zombies move. If half the people live in one city and that city becomes a zombie mosh pit, it drags the rest of the state down. So yes, safe zones exist. No, we can't cover every niche hideout. We're looking at overall survivability of each region as a whole. Now if that sounds good to you, get your Vegemite out and enjoy the show. Let's kick things off with what I think is the most obvious death trap, the Australian Capital Territory, which is basically just the city of Canberra and its suburbs. This place is pretty much one compact metro zone surrounded by hills with 483,000 people packed into it, which means 100% collapse if that city goes down. There are no secondary towns to spread the pressure, so when Canberra falls, refugees spill straight into New South Wales. That makes Australia's Capital Territory not just a problem for itself, but also a launchpad for chaos in the wider region. Water supply here is dam-fed from places like Cotter River, which might hold out for a short while on gravity flow. But once power is gone and corpses start contaminating catchments, you'll be drinking zombie soup. Beyond the city, only scattered bush streams remain. Food security is abysmal here as well. The Australian Capital Territory has little farmland and depends heavily on imports. Once supermarkets are stripped, you're left with rabbits, kangaroos, and maybe some vineyards. But firearms are not widespread and fishing is negligible. Long-term food sustainability simply doesn't exist here. Defensively, Canberra's planned layout works against you. Wide boulevards and open suburbs means zombies could flood through easily. There are military sites like Duntroon and the Defense Academy, but those strongholds will be swamped almost instantly by civilians looking for refuge. And the hills here provide a buffer, but not a fallback point. Infrastructure here is also fragile. Everything relies on the grid. Winter gets cold, which puts extra stress on survivors. And culturally, Canberra is stacked with bureaucrats, students, and transients. People with fewer hands-on survival skills than farming or rural communities. Once the command and control illusion fails, collapse is rapid and total. The Australian Capital Territory is the absolute worst place to be if you live in Australia and the outbreak kicks off. Next up, we have Victoria, the second most populated state in Australia, consisting of 7 million people. It's compact, heavily urbanized, and utterly doomed by Melbourne's sprawl. Nearly 5 million people are crammed into the city of Melbourne alone. And what do we know about cities in a zombie apocalypse, folks? Say it with me. If you live in a city and an outbreak kicks off there, you're absolutely fucked. The density means it'll instantly be overrun once the outbreak starts. And once that happens, refugees and zombies will spill down the Mornington Peninsula, heading west towards Geelong, and up the Hume Highway into regional towns. The highways will turn into zombie veins pumping infection across the state. The water here comes from Yarra Ranges reservoirs, and gravity flow might keep the taps running at first, but once treatment plants fail and corpses contaminate catchments, you can't trust a drop. Rural tanks and farm dams give some hope, but long-term every sip will need boiling or filtering. Rivers like the Murray will become sludge pits once bodies pile in. Food capacity also looks good here on paper. Gippsland, the High Country, and Mallee are all fertile, with orchids, dairy, wheat, and livestock. Escaping the metro collapse could put you near some of the best farmland in Australia, but the issue is keeping it. Farming openly means drawing both zombies and starving survivors. And with a few million potential zombies in this state, that becomes a very big hazard. Fishing exists inland and on the coast, but it would only ever support small survivor groups. It could never shoulder the weight of the refugee wave spilling out of Melbourne. The climate is also unpredictable. Summers are hot enough to light up bushfires that scatter both people and zombies. Winters, especially in the alpine resorts, could slow or freeze the undead, giving survivors breathing space. Floods around the Murray Basin make some farmlands hazardous, but also create choke points that can be exploited. The military presence here helps too. The Pukapunyal Army Base inland is significant, though it risks being swarmed by civilians and the undead. Bases near Geelong and Melbourne will collapse quickly. Industrial hazards also exist, with oil and chemical plants near Geelong that could turn into toxic nightmares if neglected. Culturally, Victoria splits. Metro dwellers are mostly urbanites with little survival skill, but rural Victorians in the Mallee or Gippsland are good with the land, livestock, and firearms. Those areas give you a fighting chance if you can get there before refugees overwhelm them, or if you're already there. In short, Victoria has farmland and mountains, but is weak in survivability. No thick towering walls to stop what's coming. Which reminds me of the castle video we did last week, where the walls kept invaders and zombies out. Do you know what else protects you from outside threats? Today's sponsor. A quick thank you to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring this video. A castle can keep things out, but online you don't have that luxury. Your internet provider, your work, school, home, and even public Wi-Fi can track what you do. But that's where CyberGhost VPN comes in. One click and your traffic is encrypted and routed through their secure servers in 100 plus countries. CyberGhost has earned the trust of more than 38 million users worldwide, making it one of the leading VPN providers today. Backed by over 20,000 glowing reviews on Trustpilot and a near-perfect rating, its reputation is well-deserved. CyberGhost gives you access to over 40 streaming platforms, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. With just a few clicks, you can unlock shows and movies from around the world. CyberGhost runs smoothly on every major device and operating system, and you can protect up to 7 devices at the same time. Ideal for keeping both you and your family safe while browsing online. Use the link in the description to claim an 84% discount plus 4 months for free. And with a 45-day money-back guarantee, plus 24/7 customer support, you could sign up with total confidence. Now we move on to New South Wales. 8 million people live here, and around 5 million are jammed into Sydney's metro sprawl. From Wollongong up to Newcastle, it's one continuous urban chain, which means once the outbreak kicks off, you're looking at a mega horde. Highways will be flooded with the dead. Refugees will all head west, overloading towns like Dubbo and Wagga Wagga that might seem safe at first, but eventually collapse under the pressure. Water security starts with Warragamba Dam and extends through Murray and Darling rivers. Rainfall is decent in the highlands, but scarce out west. As for food production, it's a strength in this state. New South Wales is a powerhouse for crops and livestock. Grain silos could be gold mines if secured early, but again, expect competition even if you get there first or own it. This state also has coastal fishing, feral pigs and kangaroos roaming inland, and farming communities that already know how to work the land. If you can escape Sydney's implosion, long-term food options are more viable here. As for climate, it varies wildly. Subtropical in the north and alpine in the south. Winters in the snowy mountains could freeze zombies solid, buying precious time. Summer brings bushfires, floods, and storms that scatter hordes unpredictably and torch shelters. Defensively, New South Wales has mixed blessings. The Blue Mountains create choke points that can be fortified, and river ranges divide the state into manageable zones. Push far enough into the Outback and distance itself becomes a filter that stops hordes from forming. But in the first months, every valley and highway is a funnel of refugees and the undead. Military presence is a double-edged sword here. Halsworthy near Sydney is doomed by proximity. Kapuka near Wagga Wagga sitting inland has more potential as a rural stronghold if it doesn't get overrun by civilians. Culturally, New South Wales splits like Victoria. Urban Sydney is fragile, dependent, and ill-prepared, while rural New South Wales is more reliant with high gun ownership and practical skills. The problem is sheer numbers. Sydney's super horde will pour into the entire state, and while inland zones have promise, they can't escape the weight of the coastal collapse. Next up we have Queensland, the sunshine state of the undead. Around 5.2 million people live here, with half the population clustered in the southeast corner around Brisbane. Add in Townsville, Cairns, and Rockhampton, and you have multiple outbreak epicenters spread across the entire coastline. That means it's harder to isolate collapse because chaos sparks in several cities at once. Water is abundant along the tropical north coast as well. Rainfall, rivers, and bores provide steady supply, but the further west you go, the scarcer it becomes. The Great Artesian Basin underpins much of inland survival, though drawing from it takes effort and infrastructure. Floods in the west season can isolate towns completely, cutting survivors off from resupply or escape. Food production is a major advantage here. Queensland has a huge cattle station, sugarcane fields, inland grain, and tropical fruit along the coast. Fishing potential is massive, from inland rivers to the reef, and feral pigs are practically an invasive food source. If managed properly, the long-term potential for feeding survivors here is among the best in the country. The climate, however, is extreme. The north faces cyclones, flooding, tropical disease, crocodiles, and snakes. Inland areas swing the other way, with droughts and bushfires threatening every year. High humidity rots zombies faster, but it also weakens humans, spreading disease and spoiling food. Survivors will sweat, dehydrate, and fight insects just as much as the undead will. Defensively, Queensland offers some promising options. The Atherton tablelands give elevated fertile ground. The Toowoomba Range forms a defensible inland barrier. Cape York is isolated by geography, with only one major road in or out, making it a natural stronghold. Offshore islands like Fraser Island and the Whitsundays could become secure zones if cleared early. Each of these locations demands serious planning, but could hold survivors long term. Military presence here is also strong. Townsville hosts a major army base, Amberley Air Base sits near Brisbane, and Cairns has a Navy patrol base. Scattered facilities give survivors access to trained personnel and equipment, but bases near cities will be swamped first. Culturally, Queensland leans rugged. Outdoor skills like fishing, four-wheel driving, and hunting are common. Rural areas have higher gun use and stronger survival culture than southern states. That self-reliant mindset makes a huge difference when cities burn, but the combination of multiple outbreak zones, brutal weather, and vast distances keeps Queensland stuck in the middle of the rankings. Now on to South Australia, which is a one-city trap. The state has around 1.8 million people, and nearly 3/4 of them live in Adelaide. If Adelaide falls, and it will, then the entire state is gutted. The rest of the Outback is sparsely populated, which creates a buffer, but it also means once the city collapses, resources are thin and scattered. Water in the state is a critical weakness. South Australia is the driest state in the country, relying heavily on the Murray River, reservoirs, bores, and rain tanks. Once the Murray becomes contaminated by corpses drifting downstream, every survivor clinging to it is in trouble. Without functioning pumps and treatment, you're left praying for water or tapping bores that may or may not be reliable. Food, however, is not hopeless. The state produces grain, wine grapes, fruit, sheep, and cattle, and Kangaroo Island along with coastal fisheries could feed isolated groups. In fact, Kangaroo Island deserves a special mention. With a population of about 5,000 people, farmland, fresh water, and access to fishing, it could become one of the best regional safe zones in the country. Survivors who are already there or managed to reach it early could establish a defensible, safe, sustaining community far away from the Undead and Adelaide's chaos. But remember, this ranking is about the whole state. Adelaide's collapse still drags South Australia down, so one good island doesn't save the entire state. That being said, the climate in South Australia is brutal. Summers climb past 40 degrees Celsius, the bushfire risk in the Adelaide Hills is constant, the winters are mild which give you a little bit of relief from the heat, and the Outback will bake the zombies, but that also kills unprepared survivors. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, and fire are as deadly as the Undead, if not more, and the military assets here won't save you. Edinburgh sits on Adelaide's doorstep and would drown in refugees within days. Woomera is remote and defensible, but you can't feed a community out there forever. In South Australia, the military isn't a game changer. It's just another pillar that'll eventually get overwhelmed and collapse. Culturally, South Australia outside of Adelaide have a stronger edge. Rural communities are self-reliant, accustomed to rainwater tanks, and experienced in bush survival. Adelaide itself is semi-urban and less prepared, but once you step into the countryside, people are tougher and more resourceful. If you can get out of the capital quickly, this state offers space to breathe, but survival still hangs on water. Unlike New South Wales, Victoria, or Queensland, it only has one major city to worry about. Adelaide's collapse is devastating, but once the fire burns out, the rest of the state is spread thin enough that zombies can't sustain huge hordes. Unlike the East Coast states where collapse spilled into endless suburbs and highways, Adelaide's smaller size and the desert buffer around it means the chaos burns out faster instead of cascading. That's the difference that pushes South Australia to 4th place despite its fragility. Now we're on to Western Australia. This state has about 2.7 million people, with almost 2 million packed into Perth. That makes Perth's collapse massive, but once it happens, the rest of the state is shielded by sheer emptiness. Beyond Bunbury, Geraldton, and Albany, you're talking about a vast distance with few towns. The desert and outback act as a natural moat that prevents the hordes from spreading far. Water is manageable in the southwest, where dams and rainfall provide supply, though the drying climate makes it less reliable every year. The outback depends on bores and aquifers, while the tropical north relies on monsoon rivers that flood during cyclone season. Survivors can tap these resources, but every option comes with risks, from contamination to isolation during floods. Food is a strength here. The wheat belt produces massive grain crops, and livestock farming is established across the south. Fishing off the coast brings rock lobster, tuna, and more. Grain silos are also scattered across the interior. The island called Rottnest could be cleared and fortified as a sanctuary as well. In practice, it's small, with limited farmland and fresh water, so it could only support a modest survivor group, maybe a few hundred at best, using fishing, rain catchment, and small-scale supplies. It's defensible and easy to isolate, but it's a short-term holdout rather than a self-sufficient colony, and the climate in the state is as punishing as it is protective. The Mediterranean Southwest faces bushfires in the summer and mild winters, while the north endures cyclones, heat, and humidity. The interior desert is deadly for humans, and crippling for zombies who dry out and disintegrate under the relentless sun. Survivors need preparation, but the environment itself does half the calling for you. Defensively, Western Australia shines. The Nullarbor Plain is a wall of nothingness that isolates Perth from the eastern states. Deserts cut off movement, while coastal bottlenecks make it easier to control key routes. Garden Island hosts a naval base that could serve as a fortress if secured. Remote mining camps in this area are already self-contained fortresses with fuel, food, and heavy equipment as well. Military assets here are notable. Perth's naval base secures the coast, and Exmouth hosts a US communication station. All are isolated enough to function as strongholds, if leadership does not collapse instantly. Their biggest risk is being swamped by civilians before survivors can lock them down. Culturally, Western Australia is tough. Miners, farmers, and indigenous communities bring self-reliance and deep land knowledge. Perth's urban population is less prepared, but outside the city, resilience is stronger than most states. Once the initial collapse burns through, Western Australia becomes one of the most viable long-term survivor zones in the country. Now in second place we have the Northern Territory, the last frontier of the living. With only about 263,000 people in total, it's the least populated region in the mainland. Around 140,000 are clustered in Darwin, while the rest are spread between Alice Springs, Katherine, and scattered remote towns. Small numbers means fewer zombies, and outbreaks remain containable outside the capital. Darwin's collapse is the worst case scenario, sending refugees and the undead down the Stewart Highway, but the Outback towns are scattered so widely that hordes can't form easily. That low density is one of the Northern Territory's greatest assets, and why I placed it second. Water here comes from top-end rivers, creeks, and billabongs, while Alice Springs relies on bores. The wet season brings floods and isolates communities, and the dry season makes water scarce. Food supply is limited in farming, but massive cattle stations dominate the land. Barramundi fishing is excellent, and animals like camels, pigs, and buffalo provide additional protein. Indigenous bush tucker knowledge is invaluable here, turning wild plants and animals into a survival edge. The climate is harsh here. In the top end, tropical humidity can rot zombies quickly. Crocodiles prowl rivers, and will eat both zombies and people. In the central deserts, the sun can bake and mummify the undead, but humans face heat stroke and dehydration. The land itself tests survivors as much as the apocalypse. Defensively, the Northern Territory is strong. Arnhem Land is a natural safe zone, almost an island within the mainland. Catherine Gorge and MacDonald Ranges provide natural fortresses, and distance itself is a shield when every town is hundreds of kilometers apart. Military presence here is also a huge advantage. Robertson Barracks outside of Darwin, Raft Tyndall near Catherine, and the indigenous-led Norforce patrols gives this territory a unique resilience. Naval patrols based in Darwin also extend control along the north coast. These assets, if locked down, make the Northern Territory one of the most military secure regions in the apocalypse. Culturally, the Northern Territory leans tougher than anywhere else. Frontier communities know the hardship. Indigenous knowledge is critical, and disaster-tested resilience runs deep. Small numbers foster unity, which is rare in a collapse. For those who can endure the land, the Northern Territory offers safety through isolation, toughness, and knowledge. Now for the absolute best place to be in Australia when the apocalypse hits. Tasmania. It's Australia's lifeboat. If you were here when the outbreak hit, count your blessings. This island has about 557,000 people total, with Hobart holding about 240,000 and Launceston about 90,000. Even if the outbreak happens here with multiple smaller towns instead of one massive city, they'll be dispersed and easier to contain. Once ferries stop, the island becomes a zombie-proof moat, and water security is excellent here. Abundant rivers, lakes, and rainfall keep supply steady. Hydroelectric dams power much of the island, and clean water is easy to access with low contamination risk compared to the mainland rivers choked with corpses. And food is one of Tasmania's biggest strengths. Agriculture is diverse, with beef, dairy, orchids, and potatoes. Fisheries and coastal food sources add another layer. While wildlife such as wallabies and deer provide meat, the cool climate acts like a natural refrigerator, extending the life of stored food. Cold winters slow or even freeze zombies, while summers are mild enough for farming. Unlike the mainland, Tasmania avoids most of the natural disasters. There are few bushfires, no crocodiles, and no cyclones. It's one of the safest climates in the country for both humans and agriculture. Infrastructure is more resilient too. Hydroelectric and wind power could be maintained long-term, and the small-scale grid is far easier to sustain than the sprawling system of the mainland. That means lights, heat, and refrigeration could realistically last far longer here than elsewhere. Culturally, Tasmania is well suited for survival. Rural self-reliance is common. Firearm ownership rates are higher than in many mainland states, and communities are tight-knit. The cohesion makes organized defense and rebuilding far more likely than in larger fractured populations. Overall, Tasmania scores high marks across every survival category. With isolation, food, water, defensibility, and culture on its side, it stands as Australia's beacon of hope in the apocalypse. Long-term communities could thrive here, and unlike the mainland, rebuilding is not a dream, it's a real possibility. So there you have it. From the death trap of Australia's capital territory to the island fortress of Tasmania. In a world gone to hell, Australia's survival map is not about outback fantasies, it's about population collapse, resource access, and whether you can outlast both the undead and the land itself. Thank you again to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to click the link in the description or the pinned comment below for 84% off and 4 months free. With their 45-day money-back guarantee, it's completely risk-free. CyberGhost VPN keeps your data private, unlocks global content, and protects up to 7 devices at once. Stay private, stay secure, unlock global content. Alright guys, if you made it to the end, I appreciate you as always. If you're new around here, or if you're not aware, I have a Discord server. I also opened up a community Project Zomboid server. So if you guys wanted to check that out, just join us on Discord and go over to the PZ channel, and all the information you need to join the server will be there. A bunch of members requested it, so I made it. I also seem to have a lot of PZ players in the comment section, so yeah, come check it out. And before I go, I just wanted to take a quick second to thank all my YouTube members and my Patreon members. I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.